Hey, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing well. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Matt Bitt, and I lead the Matt Bitt Pixels website and do a lot of pixel art. I do some game development in my spare time, mostly web game development. So today, what I'd like to do is show you a JavaScript library that I use to create some games, and actually I'm making my first game with it right now. The JavaScript library is called KontraJS, and we'll get into that in just a little bit more, but more about Matt Bitt Pixels. This is my personal website, and I'm hoping to do some live streams from here. You can check me out on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter. I do a lot of tweeting, so feel free to join me on Twitter and follow me there. Gosh, where else am I? I'm on Discord. If you want to check out Matt Bitt Pixels Discord server, you can check that out as well. On my website, mattbit.com, if you go to the social media area, either clear down at the bottom of the website or on the left-hand side, you just kind of open up that bar, that panel, that menu, and all the social media links will be there. You can go to my Discord channel from there. You can go to the YouTube channel from there. The Twitter, you can go to that and follow me there. You can also check out all of my Redbubble different artwork in that I've got on Redbubble. You can purchase different artwork from there. Actually, I've got one back here on the wall that you can see. That's my family portrait in pixels. But you can also buy masks there too. And, hey, coronavirus is not going away anytime soon. And it's really important for everybody to mask up. So if you go to my website, mattbit.com, and click on the Buy Face Mask under the Pixel Art section, click on that button, and it'll take you to my Redbubble page where you can buy different face masks. I've got, I think, 3 or 4 that you can purchase from. I hope to get more up there soon. But if you don't like any of my artwork, that's fine. There are other face masks on redbubble.com. Feel free to go check them out. Lots of great artists on redbubble.com, and you can purchase any of those, any of those face masks with their artwork on it. There's a wide variety of different things on there. So, my daughter's a real big Harry Potter fan, and so she was looking for some Harry Potter face masks on there to wear to school. So go to redbubble.com, check out their face masks. If you want to buy any of mine, any of my artwork face masks, you can. Just click on the Buy Face Mask button on mattbit.com. So let's dive into some game development stuff here, and we're going to check out a really cool tool. It's one of my favorites. It's a really good web development tool. It's KontraJS is really the tool's library name. You can download it from the Kontra website. It's actually a GitHub website address. I will make sure to post it in the YouTube description. But yeah, go to the Kontra website. You can even do a search for KontraJS, and it'll take you to this website, and you can check that all out. Before we dive a little bit deeper into Kontra, I do want to mention that I am using a new live streaming tool. It's called StreamYard. You might see the little logo that's way up there in the video, powered by StreamYard. StreamYard is a really cool tool. For those of you that do a lot of web-based stuff, web-based applications and that, StreamYard is completely web-based. It's a web application that you can use to stream to YouTube. You can stream to Twitch. You can stream to all of the great live streaming outlets that are out there. So check it out. StreamYard is the name, and it's a really cool tool that I found, and it's very quick and easy to get your live streaming up and going. So check it out. It's a really neat tool. Anyway, let's dive into Kontra here a little bit. If you're not familiar with JavaScript libraries, they basically make your life a little bit easier. If you're going to develop a game, that's web-based and you're writing it out in JavaScript, there's a lot of things that you have to do in the JavaScript code in order for your game to happen. And basically, a JavaScript library kind of takes that takes that coding and brings it to more of an abstract level. It basically just allows you to do quicker coding, shorter coding, and allows you to basically just tap into some things that are already pre-built, prefabricated. Some of those things could be physics. KontraJS does not have a lot of physics involved. It does do some collisions, which is pretty cool, but there's not a lot of physics involved in KontraJS. If you're looking for something that's more like a full-blown library or a framework that you could use with JavaScript, I recommend Phaser, and I'll do another live stream at some point on Phaser. I haven't used it a lot lately because I've been developing more sort of tiny mini web-based games. If you're developing like a larger web-based game that has a lot of bells and whistles to it, Phaser is probably the framework, the JavaScript library that you're going to want to use instead of KontraJS. And it actually says that in the KontraJS documentation. So let's dive into the KontraJS here and take a deeper look at it. One of the things I just mentioned was the documentation. Oh my gosh, KontraJS has some amazing documentation. It's really good stuff. There's some quick tutorials that are in here. You can really dive into it and start using it right away if you know some basic JavaScript. So one of my first recommendations, if you're going to use a JavaScript library, is that you have some background in JavaScript. If you know JavaScript and you know some scripting language, code statements, things like that you can use that are typically used in game development that are in the JavaScript language, then you're probably ready to use KontraJS. If you're not very familiar with using JavaScript, this can be a really sharp learning curve for you. But anyway, KontraJS, like it says here, it's a very lightweight gaming micro library. It's a small library that you can use for JS13 games. JS13K games is it's a game jam that happens every year, and if you're not familiar with it, there is a link here on the KontraJS website that you can go to and check it out. But basically, you're creating very tiny JavaScript games that are within 13K, and that way, it's a small, very small game, and you want to keep everything very lightweight and tiny. So that's what makes Kontra amazing, is that it's a very lightweight library. If you're wanting to build something bigger that's more involved, they do recommend also Phaser, which I also recommend. So check out Phaser, and I will do an episode on Phaser as well at some point, a live stream on that. Basically, KontraJS, I'm telling you what, the documentation in here is great. They show you how to get started with it. There's a lot of things that you can go through here to learn how to download it, install it, use it. If you want to use NPM, you can do that. There's ways to load it directly if you're using it as a global object. There's ways to import it directly into your JavaScript using the ES module. I think I use the module bundler. I think that's how I have it in there. You can also, this is really cool, you can also use a tool called Webmaker. If you're not familiar with Webmaker, it's amazing. Webmaker will actually pull the KontraJS library into your project automatically for you. So that's what's really cool about it. And like they said, if you want to get started without all the hassle, Webmaker's got you covered, and they are seriously not joking here. I've tried it out. It's amazing. You can store your project right in Webmaker, so you don't have to have your files on your local drive or anything like that. It's a really cool tool. So if you're just getting started with it and you don't want to try to install KontraJS or anything like that, just go to Webmaker and import the KontraJS library directly into it on Webmaker, and then you can develop your project right there. It gives you all the initialization, all the different commands in that to initialize Kontra within your project, so within your JavaScript. I believe, let me double check here. Yeah, I think I did the global object is what I did. I just pulled it in directly that way. And then also did my canvas and context. And then it goes into developing it. And after you initialize it, how do you develop a sprite, initialize that sprite, and then and how do you put the code together for it, and then how do you do a game loop. So again, I'm using the global object version of it here. They also give you ES module import, and they give you the module bundler. So if you're using that approach, you can use some code examples that are provided there for you. What's really nice is they start out with some really simple stuff. So if you want to just get started and see if you can develop this little animation that's up here at the top, you can take this code, start plugging it into your project, into your JavaScript file, and run it and see if you can get it to work correctly, and then start tinkering around with it. To me, that's the best way to learn these JavaScript tools and game development tools out there, is to actually just go in and start playing around with it. Start tinkering with some of the code that's in here and see what you can do. So basically, once you've initialized it, you've got your different sprites. You basically build them out. This one here is not using an image. I use an image in some of my sprites, but this one here is just the rectangle that's red, and it basically tells where the starting X and Y is. There's really good commenting in here, really good documentation to get you started. Then you get into the game loop, and it talks about updating the function within the game loop and what that looks like, and then rendering within the game loop, and then here's where you start your loop. So that's the start of the game. So really basic, simple file to get you going, and just start diving in by looking at some of the basic examples that are in here. There's the download section here where you can download it straight from the GitHub repo. You can fork it in there if you'd like to. There's also how you can pull it directly in from the CDN, from the server, if you want to do it that way. I think what I did was actually just download the KontraJS stuff from GitHub, and then imported it into my project from there. So I have the JS file, the JavaScript file for Contra, and then just pulled it in from there. I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a little bit. But there's different approaches, and they go through every different way that you want to import it into your project if you want to do it that way. So go through and check that out. Now, tutorial-wise, there's not a lot of tutorials that dive you in and walk you through developing a KontraJS game. A JavaScript game using this library. There are some good ones out there. This one is one of my favorites, Making Asteroids with KontraJS and Webmaker. This is an exceptional tutorial. So if you go in and take a look at that one, he does a really great job. Just the way that he organizes his code in all of his examples and everything throughout the tutorial is fantastic. He breaks it down really simply to show collisions, to show respawning of sprites. He goes through all of that in great detail. So that's a really good tutorial. I highly recommend it, the Making Asteroids one. So and then Made with Contra. There's a nice little library here where you can dive into some of these games and check them out. Now, if you open up one of these games and you check them out, most of them are on the JS 13K Games website. But you can play the game, and when you open up the game, it says click to start, blah, blah, blah. You can do Control-Shift-I and start getting into the console here and start taking a look at some of the deeper coding, some of the elements and things for this page. That'll give you some of like the HTML, the different effects, things like that. The body, you can start looking into how they set up their HTML on the page. So there's some different things that you can kind of take a look at and get some good examples on. Some of them, they actually show some good examples with them too. So, there's just some different information that you can get from here, by going in and looking at other people's work. Here's his GitHub files, so you can go there, actually take a look at some of the code in that, and just going in and taking a look at other people's code in the games that they've developed, some of these examples, that can give you like a lot of information. So definitely check out the Made with Contra library that's in here. There's some really good stuff, and different types of games. games, if you're doing like a platformer game, or you're doing like Asteroids where it's a shooter game and you're breaking apart different things, this is more like a platformer type style game. There's some navigation games, maze games, different things like that. So there's all different styles and types of games that are in here. Pick one that is similar to what the kind of project is that you're trying to develop, and go in and learn about it. If they have their code shared on GitHub or wherever, check it out and see if you can learn from some of their examples. Now, once you get down into the API section, now that we're out of the kind of documentation and tutorials here, now we're getting down into the API, which is where you get into more documentation about the specific elements of the KontraJS library. So what I would start off with is sort of your core API. They're in alphabetical order, so they're not really going to show you, okay, here's the API that you should start taking a look at first. I would recommend diving into the core piece first. Get your core set up in your JavaScript file and start to understand the core basics of the library before you start diving into some of the other elements. Anyway, this gets into initialization, initializing the library, doing the canvas setup and context and things like that. Your HTML canvas element, it'll give you maybe some HTML stuff to go along with this, but most of the code examples that you see are going to be JavaScript. So if you're not really sure how to take your JavaScript file and use it on the canvas that's in HTML file, you may want to go out and look for some other resources to understand that piece a little bit better. There's some good examples out there as well. Again, a lot of these libraries, JavaScript libraries, and that are relying on the HTML canvas and not really just plain pure vanilla JavaScript. So when we're getting into some of using the libraries and frameworks and that, we're going to start probably relying some on the HTML canvas. So you need to be familiar with that, how to use it, how to use the DOM, and start understanding what that means. So I highly recommend checking that out before getting involved in JavaScript and Contra. After you take a look at core and you start understanding some of the core setup of the JavaScript, you might want to dive into Sprites and start understanding how to get your Sprite set up. I wouldn't dive into animations right away, but they do a great job of talking about properties and all the different properties that go along with sprites. Here is a really good table of contents and then additional how the properties are utilized. So if you're developing like a rectangle sprite, here's a really good setup for how to use a rectangle sprite. It's very similar to what was on the Getting Started page earlier, but here's how to use an image sprite. Remember I said before, the rectangle sprite is just drawing a rectangle and coloring it in on the actual canvas itself. The image sprite is where you have a sprite sheet or you have a specific just PNG image that you're utilizing, and you want to pull that in and use it as a sprite character. And this will show you how to get that image and that asset loaded into your project. Once you get the image loaded and everything, and you've got all of the parameters, characteristics, properties and everything set up, then you can render it and actually use it within your game. Here's where it gets into more animation of a sprite. It starts to show you not just how to load the asset, but then also load a sprite sheet that has all of those different assets in there, and talking about like the frame rate and setting up different animations, giving that animation a name so that you can call that animation later on when you're in your game loop. Yeah, so it goes into great detail about those. Now here are some custom properties as well, where you can draw different types of shapes onto the actual canvas itself if you need to do that. Extending a sprite, accelerating sprites. It gives you some definitions for some of these different properties. Advancing a sprite is very handy. So if you want it to just continue doing the heading off in a certain direction at a certain velocity, and you want it to do that every time. Just keep doing that every time it updates in the game loop. Sprite Advance is a really good property to do that. It relies on delta time in order to do that. You can adjust delta time, and you can add your own time into as a variable or global object within your JavaScript if you want to as well. But it goes into some of the DT delta time parameters and what that means. Sprite Anchors, it goes into that pretty in depth. Sprite Anchors basically talk about the origin, where your sprite, when you tell it to go to a specific point on the canvas grid, if you want to call it that, when you tell it to go to a specific point, which point of your sprite do you want it to utilize? Do you want it to utilize a corner of your sprite? Do you want it to use the very center of your sprite? This will become important with collisions as well. So not just where where you're anchoring the sprite, but also once you get the anchor in the correct location or the location where you want it, then you can utilize that to program collisions and things. So again, this Sprite section, you could probably take a good day or two going through and playing around with collisions and setting up different colors, animations. Get a good grasp on this after you've set up the core code and the core program of your project. Get a really good grasp on how to utilize the different sprites. Now, if you want to dive deeper into sprite sheets, it'll give you more information on sprite sheets and properties, how to use a sequence of them. So again, it goes deeper into sprite sheets and how to utilize them for animations and different things like that. I haven't delved a whole lot into these yet. I'm familiar with how it's used and going in and doing that. But when you're prototyping a game, usually you'll start without animating your sprites and just utilize some basic properties and basic basic images or objects. It may even just be a rectangular object to be a placeholder for that sprite that or animation that you're going to use later on. So that's kind of the stage that I'm at right now, just for prototyping. But yeah, once you get into some more of the animation stuff and that, the sprite sheet section gives you more of that information with the animation areas and that as well. I haven't gotten into the tile engine yet. That's utilized more for platformers for sure, and for RPG games, the RPGs. So once I start developing a game later with some of those types of needs, I'll definitely be diving into the tile map information. Now they also have keyboard input information as well in here. So when you start looking at initializing keys and also updates, key maps, things like that, what the keys are that are available. They have a Keymap property, gives you a list of the available keys up here. But the Keymap property, basically you can just map to any of the different keys that are already pre-programmed into the library. So you don't have to assign, certain parameters and stuff to specific keys. It'll just say key pressed left, key pressed right, up, down. You can also do more specific with the key maps. You can also bind keys as well in here. So a lot of different features that you can do with the keyboard input information. There is also pointer and touch screen input that you can do as well, tracking some of the functions of the cursor. There's a lot of stuff in here that you can go through and check out some of that information. Collides with the pointer. You can utilize that feature. Again, tons of documentation on each different API that's available in the KontraJS. Highly recommend you go through and read up on what the different APIs are and how they're utilized. There's some really good examples. Again, if you want to get into more animation, there's even an animation API section that goes into the sprite sheets a little bit more in depth with all the different properties about frames, looping, margin, sprite sheet, width, all that good stuff. And here are the methods as well, how to clone them, how to render them, reset an animation, update an animation. So all of those properties are included in the animation section as well. So you've got sprites that goes over animation. You've got the sprite sheet section that goes over how to utilize sprite sheets for animations. And then you dive deeper into animations and check out all the different properties of the animation as well. So a lot of good information there on just sprites alone. Once you got a good handle on sprites, then I would dive into more some of the game loop information. And there's a lot of good stuff in here, talking about, using the fixed DT. You can also do an update call guaranteed equal 1/60th of a second. That's based on the delta time as well. So it's kind of however you want to program your timing for different assets within the game. But this goes into a little bit more in depth of updating different sprites and updating different collisions and things like that. There's a lot within here that you can go through and take a look at, more related to the game loop properties, but also it dives a little deeper into delta time and how to utilize some of the update functions within your game loop. So definitely check that out as well. So those are the big ones. There are definitely a lot of other APIs in here you can check out. Pool is a really good one if you want something, a sprite to kind of keep respawning and shooting or appearing, whatever you want it to do. It's a pool of sprites. There's Quad Tree that's involved in here. Storing different data and information. Vector. Tons of stuff. Events has a lot of really good things as well that you can call on different events within your game. Lifecycle events, things like that. Check out a lot of the documentation that's in here for the APIs. It's incredible stuff. So again, this is KontraJS, and definitely read up on it before you start diving into it. Make sure you got some basics in JavaScript. You really need to understand how to program with JavaScript and how to write scripts and good documentation, which, that's commenting on code and things like that you need to have as well. But, just start to really get a good understanding of JavaScript. Now, I'm going to pull up Cosmic Chaos here. And we'll take a look at Cosmic Chaos. Cosmic Chaos is a game that I'm working on right now, and it's coming along pretty well. It's the first game that I've developed with KontraJS, and I think it's coming along really well. I'm pretty pleased with it so far. I've been able to pull in different fonts. I've been able to have it calculate scores. The animations work really good with it right now. The input's working really well. I've tried maybe 2 or 3 different approaches to how I've programmed some of the different assets, some of the different mechanics that are in the game itself. And I'm pretty happy with where it's at right now. I think that I've got the mechanics down pretty well. One thing that I'm really still not happy with about it is my code. So once we start diving in here and taking a look at the code, just be aware that my code needs cleaned up pretty bad. It's not fantastic. So once we start taking a look at it here, I don't have a lot of good documentation in it right now. I hope to add more documentation like comments and things like that later on. But yeah, once you start looking at the code, it's not very clean. So I apologize for that. Now, this is Cosmic Chaos here. Running on the machine and on the browser. And what I'm finding out just now for the first time is that it's not showing the code piece to it. So hang on one second here. Let me share this differently and see if that will resolve our issue. Let's see here. Give me 2 seconds. We're going to try this again here. All right. Well, that shared, you get a sneak peek at StreamYard there. So now I'm sharing my code, and there we go. Let's see here. I'm going to blow this up a little bit larger for y'all. If it's not already, you should be able to see the whole thing there. Now, what I've done is this is running. So just to make things a little simpler, what I've done here is I'm running this in my browser. And in Chrome, if you select Control-Shift-I, if you do that key shortcut, Control-Shift-I, or the Inspect Web Dev Tools is basically what I've opened up here. I've opened up Web Dev Tools and pulled up in my workspace over here the different files and folders and that is operating this code, this game at the moment. So that way we can take a look at some of the code and we can also compare it to the game itself. First off, when you're looking at it here, what you see is, you know what, I thought I blew it up and I didn't. Let me make this larger for you. And I apologize. This is my first time using StreamYard, and there we go. Let's see if that looks better. There we go. Okay, so let me back up just a little bit here because I don't know that everybody has. I don't know that everybody saw what I was sharing there. So what you're seeing is the game running in my Chrome browser over here on the right. And if you do Control-Shift-I, like I said, that's to inspect a website or anything like that. That'll let you open up the web dev tools in Chrome. And you can use your own editor. You can use your own IDE if you want to. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm not going to get into that debate as to what editor is the best editor to use. I'm going to pull it up in the web dev tools because I do a lot of web development, and it's a quick and easy way to dive into the code and take a look at it and see what's going on. You can break this out if you want to undock it and basically pull it out into a separate window. So if you've never used the web dev tools, you can do that as well. There's lots of really cool features in here. There's lots of reasons why I use it, and check it out if you haven't checked it out before. Under sources, I can pull out of my file system. This is off of my computer. I've got my whole Cosmic Chaos game development over here with all of the different folders and files that are utilizing the game and running the game at the moment. So I've got a few of these files open. The nice thing about the Web Dev Tools is that it will put this green circle, green dot on every file that is currently being utilized over here in the browser itself. So that's pretty cool because I can actually see it running and working. Now this is the index HTML. You can embed this into any website that you want to. I'll show you what it looks like on my website here in a little bit. And you can check out the current status of Cosmic Chaos if you'd like to. But the index HTML, that'll actually set up the canvas on your page, and it'll pull in any CSS, class style sheet stuff that you want to pull in. I have a little bit in here, but it's mostly for the font. So I have a class style sheet set up here in game CSS. And basically, my class style sheet is just pulling up the font right now. And the font that's being used is Kinney Mini Square. If you haven't used Kinney resources or assets before, they're free. They're great to use. And that's the font that I'm using to produce the score right here. So that's that font that's up there. That's the only class style sheet that I have on this page. Other website pages might have additional class style sheet stuff that's involved. But that's the only thing that I need for the game itself. So this sets up the canvas, makes the background black for me, sets the width and everything for the canvas, so how big the game is. The margin is auto, so that'll center the game for me on the page. You know, you can set all of that, preset all of that right away, and there you go. So now you have a game that's already set in here. Now I do have a scale in here, and width is the device width. So it's pulling what the screen width is, so it'll readjust the size of my box accordingly so it's not going off the screen. So you can set that all within the HTML as well. Now, once you're down here in the HTML, we've got the canvas ID set up, the height and width of it set up down here, and then we pull in our scripts. So here's the library script for KontraJS. And we need to use this command in order to pull in the script that I downloaded from the GitHub where KontraJS is hosted. So I've actually downloaded that JavaScript file, and you can see it over here under library, and here's the KontraJS file. This is the only file for the library that you actually need. So if you have that file for the library in your project folder, you can just reference it right here. You can call on it right here in your HTML. So that allows you to use the entire library. And then after that, I have my source or my main JavaScript file being called on in the HTML as well. And that's what actually produces the game. So like I tell most people, the main JavaScript file that I have in my game, that's the guts. That's the guts of the game right there. The index is basically your HTML to set it up in how it's going to look on your website, on your page itself. So once you get into the guts, this is where we start calling on the Contra library. We do the initializing. You've got the canvas that you're initializing, the keys that you're initializing for all of the key commands for the game. And then we start diving into the actual game code. So here's my font that I'm using, the Kenny Mini Square, and I'm also rendering the text for the score right here. So that's how I got the score up here. I've also got the score as a global variable that I'm calling on right here. So let score equals 0. So it starts off with 0. Then I get into my sprites and my background. Now I'm using arrays. I got this idea of using arrays from the Asteroids tutorial that I mentioned earlier. It's a great way to use to have multiple sprites appear and vanish or be killed off in your game. So if you've got multiple sprites, multiple things, objects, and assets that are being utilized, you can do an array, and that is a really great way of killing them off when they have a collision or respawning new ones. You can just keep calling and adding to that array. So here's where we load the assets. So I've got my enemy ship and I got my spaceship. Now eventually I'll probably do a sprite sheet for the spaceship, but I only have one image at the time right now. And I may just load one image and put both ships on it and just set the parameters of the width and the height for each of the different ships and where they are on the sprite sheet. So that way I'm not using two separate images like I am right here. I haven't done that yet, but that's what I hope to maybe do later on, just to make my code a little bit more efficient. And then we've got some different clocks that I'm utilizing here, some different timing clocks that I've got going on. I've got a couple of them that are in the update. And then I've got some functions happening here. So this is when every time one of the stars are created. So these are all the little dots that you see flying in the background there. Every time that those are generated, that's using this function right here. And it's pushing it to the star. It's pushing that to the background. And the background is an array that I called on, or that I set up earlier in the code. I've got my sprite set up for the player, and then when you get down here, you've got your enemy as well. So all my functions are built in here as well. We can dive more into this project later on, and I'll probably do some more live streaming with this project specifically, but I basically just wanted to show you some of the benefits of using KontraJS. It's not going to be an end-all solution for everything that you want to program in your JavaScript game, but it does give you some really cool things that you can call on and utilize, like the sprites and setting that up. It makes it so much easier just to dive into that and start building your game. Also with the loop as well, and the update functions. All of those are all built into that JavaScript library for KontraJS. And if we open KontraJS, you can see it gets into some more documentation. Lots of really good documentation in here on all the different things that are built, all the different functions that are built within the KontraJS. So you can go through and take a look at it if you've downloaded it or forked it on GitHub. And it'll also give you some really good documentation as well for the KontraJS library. All right, so that's all I got on the KontraJS library. I know that was a long, in-depth look at it. Just really, you got to go in and read it. You got to read the documentation. But what's amazing about the KontraJS library is the documentation. So let me come back to me here. Here we go. So go in, read it. I will post the link to KontraJS in the description for this YouTube video here. Once I'm done streaming, I'll make sure that that's in there so you can take a look and just click right to it and check out the KontraJS. One last thing that I did want to point out and show to everybody before I log off for today. Let me share one more screen here with you. I wanted to share what it looks like on my website itself. So let me pull that up. And here we go. So this is what it looks like on my website. And if you go to MapBitPixel's website, you can check this game out. You can head there and, take a look at the game yourself. You can play the game. I need to refresh it actually because my spaceship disappeared on me. There's actually a spaceship down here, and then you've got your score up here. And let me get out of the way so I can shoot. Whoops, I can shoot with the space bar. And I don't know that it's going to work while I'm trying to stream. Let me refresh here. See if this will. There we go. Oh, I got hit. So once you get hit, your spaceship player disappears. I don't have a game over notification just yet, but there we go. And I've got a see. It's all set up then in the arrays so that once it collides with your laser or your missiles, then you. Oh, that was close. And your score starts increasing by 100 for each spaceship that you destroy. I'm going to have hopefully an animation later on that will actually show the spaceships blowing up, whenever they collide or hit each other. But your spaceship, you move back and forth with your right and your left arrow, and then you use your space bar to fire your missiles. Now, if you go down here on my page, I actually have those instructions that I just described to you. It kind of gives you a little brief overview and introduction of the game itself. And it also shows you how to fire the missiles, and it talks about using the left and the right arrow on the keyboard. I do have a note on here that it's not updated, but it is updated, but it's still under development. As I continue to develop this game, I hope to keep the updates going on this page so you can play the latest version of the game itself. Also down here at the bottom, I've got a devlog started, and hopefully every time that I post an update to the game, I will post the date down here of when I updated it and give you a bulleted list of all of the updates that I made to that game. Or to that push of the game. I also have a YouTube video here that you can watch and check out. It just shows you real quickly some of the code that's utilized in development of the game. So you can check that video out in your spare time as well. Again, this is mapbit.com, M4TTBIT. Mapbit.com. Go there, check it out if you'd like to. It is under the games section. So if you go to the website, you just click on games and you'll find Cosmic Chaos right here. Asteroid Dust is another game that I have posted right now. I've not been developing it for the time being. I hope to develop that more later on. It does not use JavaScript or a JavaScript framework, and it's not hosted on my website right now. It's actually, if you go to check out development, it's hosted on itch.io. So if you go to my itch profile page, it will have Asteroid Dust there, and you can play it online. There's only one level. There's no point values. It's built using I don't know if I'd call it a game engine, but it's a fantasy console called TIC80. And I hope to do a live stream on TIC80 at some point and what fantasy consoles are, so you can take a look at what they are and get a better understanding of what fantasy consoles are. Anyway, we'll do a whole episode on that at some point. Asteroid Dust, you can go in, play it, check it out. You can also play the current release on my website, actually hosted there, of Cosmic Chaos. Now, if you have any suggestions for the game, feel free to join me on Discord or join me on Twitter. Just shoot me those suggestions, DM them to me, or send me a direct message on Discord. Whatever you'd like to do, but send me your feedback. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you think that there needs to be some, updates to the graphics or something like that, you've got an idea for a sprite or something, I'm open to it. Just be friendly about it. That's all I ask. Realize that it's a game that's in development. I'm not a full-time developer, and I do it in my spare time. So whenever I have spare time, I'll go in and make updates to it and tweak it and play around with it a little bit. So check it out, and be sure to check out KontraJS. It's a great tool. If you've never tried it or checked it out before, I highly recommend it. And again, I'll put it in the description, and you can go there and check that out. I may also include a game development section on my website on mattbit.com, mattbitpixels. You can go to the website there. I will host this video there. A recording of this stream will be posted there as well. But yeah, you can check out all my future live streams from mattbit.com. Everything will be there under the game dev section, and you can go check those out. So those will be coming soon as well. Again, check me out on Twitter. Follow me there. You can also join my Discord server. MattBitPixel is the website and the server name. My name is MattBit, and hopefully I'll see you on my YouTube channel or on my website in the future. So thanks a lot for joining me as I introduce you to KontraJS, and definitely check it out. I will post some links for you. And until next time, keep developing and enjoy developing web-based games. If you're using JavaScript, KontraJS, whatever. So hopefully these live streams will get better in the future as well. This is the probably second or third live stream I've done. So, I hope that they'll just sort of be a casual conversation, as more people start to join during the live streams. I look at the chat a lot in YouTube here, so I hope that people will join it and chat and share more information about game development too. So it'll be more of a casual conversation rather than going through a whole tool, of how to do things and stuff. So if you're not familiar with live streams, they're not really a pre-scripted sort of video, but if you've got ideas of certain things you'd like me to cover or take a look at on my live stream feeds, let me know. I'm open to whatever you'd like to investigate, and I would be more than happy to learn alongside with you any type of library or JavaScript library you want to check out. There's lots of frameworks and game engines out there to develop web-based games, and let me know, and I'm happy to try them out and share what I've learned about them with you, and you can share that in the comments as well. So until next time, keep developing, and we'll talk soon.